Welcome back to the High Vibe Life podcast with me, Moira Casaba. If my voice sounds a little funny, it's pollen season here in Charleston, South Carolina, and I think that's what's going on. I can't decide if it's a good thing if I'm sick or if it's a good thing that this is allergies, but one way or the other, I'm snuggled up under a blanket and it's raining pollen outside. But I am so excited to record this particular podcast because I'm just coming off of doing a keynote in Orlando, Florida for a couple thousand people. And so many people on social have been asking me if they can listen to it. And it was a company event. It wasn't recorded. And I thought, gosh, why don't I just give this to you guys here? Because it's really the best of my brain, weeks of rehearsal. And I'm not going to do it keynote style because I get to just snuggle up and have this conversation with you guys today and have it be a little bit more casual, a little bit less theatrical, but the same content, the same important pieces of information that I hope will impact you today as much as it did this audience that I got to speak to in Orlando. So let's get started. So the title of my speech was this: You are the author of your story. The tagline: rewrite your story, rewire your brain, and become unstoppable. This is my jam, y'all. This is every single thing I believe, every single thing I've studied, every single thing I know, and really, truly what dramatically and completely changed my life in every single area. When I really understood some workings of the brain and how we do this, right? And I implemented doing this on a daily basis. So here's the reality. We are stuck. We are so chronically stuck. I feel like so often we know whether it's the weight loss strategy or the business strategy or whatever the plan is, we are not at a loss for plans. We are at a loss for the follow through, the motivation, the willpower, the ability to execute on the plan, on the strategy, because we are stuck. Did you guys know that, check this out, 60 million people in the United States alone suffer from anxiety and depression? 60 million. Y'all, that's just anxiety and depression. That's not addiction. That's not even some of these softer things that keep us stuck, like a lack of self-confidence, a lack of belief, insecurity. We so often stay attached to the stories that don't serve us. But listen to this shocking statistic. If we are to take 100 people at the start of their working careers and follow them for 40 years until retirement, this is what we find. 59 of them will be broke and dependent on friends, family, or the government to take care of them. 59 out of 100. 31 will no longer be with us. 5 will continue to work into retirement, not because they want to, but because they have to. 4 will be financially secure. And 1 will be wealthy. 1. Why are we all so stuck? What is holding us back from financial freedom, from a vibrant marriage, from a healthy, thriving body, right? All of the things that so many of us are looking for. Now, this last statistic is the one that breaks my heart in a million pieces. Suicide is the second leading cause of death in our kids. In our kids. But here's the hope and my absolute belief and conviction that solution doesn't rest on their shoulders. It rests on our shoulders. That when we change, they change. When our beliefs change, their beliefs change. When our outlook changes, their outlook changes. When our perspective changes, their perspective changes. When our gratitude changes, their gratitude changes. And we can shift that statistic, not by fixing them, but by working on us, right? And I've been there, y'all. I've been at that place in my life where I wanted to end it. Most of you guys know my story of addiction. I got sober when I was 21 years old. But a lot of you may not know that story of me sitting in my apartment in San Diego, California, with one thought and one question rolling around in my head. And that thought was, how do I get a gun so I can kill myself? How do I get a gun so I can kill myself? I was at the end of my rope, at the end, what I thought of my life. I had done every single thing I could to try to get sober, and I couldn't do it. And what I couldn't do any longer was put my friends and family, the people that loved me, through another day of the pain and the wreckage that I was causing. And our brains like to answer the questions that we ask. So as I sat there in that apartment asking myself that question, the plans were being laid. And thank God there was a knock at my door. And it was my friend Devin from 12-Step Rooms. And I opened the door and Devin was just pleading with me. You know, I had relapsed again. And he said, Moira, you have to get to a meeting. And I just feel like I remember so clearly being just the shell of a human with what felt like no soul inside. And I just shook my head and I said, I can't. And he said, you have to talk to somebody. And I said, I can't. And Devin said, Moira, you have to pray. And I said, I can't. I was done. And the next thing Devin did is he said, well, if you can't do that, then I'm going to pray for you. I'm going to pray over you. And I have no idea what Devin said in that prayer. But I remember the question he asked me at the end. He said, what if this isn't the end of your story? What if there's a different path? What if there's a different journey ahead? And my mind followed the question. It started to answer the question. And all of a sudden, there was a crack of light in the darkness. And I started to see a different path. And guys, when I think about the person I was versus the person I am now, the broken, addicted, no way out, stuck beyond measure, rock bottom beyond rock bottom, to the person I am today, to the thriving marriage, to the thought leader, to the visionary, to the successful businesswoman, all of the things, I'm like, how does that person become this person? How in the world is that possible? And my belief in you comes from my story. If I can do this 180, you can do anything you want. And I believe it comes down to this one simple thing. We get to rewrite our story by changing the questions that we ask. And so, y'all, I got sober when I was 21. I walked around and had some success and some, I got married. I started having kids between 21 and 36, but I was still just trudging that road. I was still stuck. I was thriving compared to addiction. Don't get me wrong. But man, I feel like I was living the way that most Americans live, right? We've got the hopes and dreams, but we're really not chasing them. We're really not thriving. We're just getting through the days. We're getting through the weeks to get to the weekend. We're never really experiencing that transformation. And what happened to me at age 36, after walking around for 15 years with shame about who I was as an alcoholic, because remember, I got sober in California where it's very common and very cool to be sober. And I quickly moved to the South where we don't talk about that. We don't talk about that. And I carried a lot of shame about who I was at the core. And at age 36, I decided to start studying the brain, and I learned a few simple things that I'm going to teach you today. And it changed everything. Y'all, at 36, I went on to build a multi-million-dollar business. I went on to transform my marriage into to amazing. And I got in the best shape of my life after years of struggling with my body. How does that all happen in an instant? Not an instant, but in maybe the course of a year. It happened because I understood how my brain worked and how to get it to work for me. And I changed the questions I was asking. And so, quick lesson, neuroscience. Our brains, they're just a supercomputer. They are not designed, guys, to make us thrive. They are designed to protect us from danger, from threats, from, a bear coming at us trying to eat us. Like, that's what our brains are designed for. And we will scan the environment. Our brains scan the environment 24/7, unconsciously, looking for danger, looking for those threats, looking for anything that might be uncomfortable, like building a new habit, God forbid, right? That's uncomfortable. Your brain doesn't really know the difference between you got to drink more water, this is uncomfortable, to like, someone's chasing you, this is uncomfortable. It's going to protect you. And so it's always going to alert you to the uncomfortable, to the things that involve risk, to the threats. What if the business doesn't succeed? And our brains stack that evidence all day long in what it thinks is our favor, but is actually against our dreams, our hopes, our big visions. And so what we have to do, and what we have the freedom to do, is actually create the filter system we want. So when I was on stage, I showed them this picture of a bunch of different objects, of which some of them, they were all different colors, right? And I said to them, okay, you've got 3 seconds to find as many blue objects as you possibly can. I flashed up the picture, 1, 2, 3. The whole audience is screaming out, thousands of people, the blue objects, the pen, the notebook, the this, the that. And then I asked them, did you see any yellow objects? And all of them were like, well, no. I think maybe one person in the audience got it right. No, they didn't see the yellow objects because I didn't ask them to look for the yellow objects. Our brains do what we ask it to do. The filtering system that we all have in our brain is called the reticular activating system. You've probably also had this happen. You are looking for, say, a matte black Bronco. That's your dream car. You want to buy a matte black Bronco. You've never seen them before. You're going to be so unique. The second you start thinking about that matte black Bronco, they are everywhere. You start seeing matte black Broncos everywhere. What in the world? They weren't there yesterday. Guess what? They were, but your brain wasn't filtering for them. And so how do we train this filtering system to control the things we want to control? We do it through the questions that we ask. So I want you to listen to this. I'm going to plug it into this podcast because, it's my favorite thing on earth. I plugged this little video into, the presentation. This is Eileen Gu, who is the most decorated free skier in the entire world. She's 22 years old. Y'all, listen to her understanding of how the brain works and neuroplasticity, exactly what we're talking about right now.
Like, you can control how you think, and therefore you can control who you are. And especially as a young person, like I'm 22, so with neuroplasticity on my side, I can literally become exactly who I want to be. How cool is that? Like, how empowering is that, right? And so the fact is, I get to become every day the kind of person that me at age 8 would revere. Like, I would be obsessed with me today. Are you kidding? I would love me. And I think that's the biggest flex of all time.
How cool is that? How incredibly cool is that? She gets that at 22 years old. I didn't get it till I was 36. Everything changed. Most people don't ever get this. They don't understand. All right, so let's dig into literally how we do this. So I call this inquire to rewire. The questions we ask change everything, right? Our brain responds to the questions we ask. Usually we're asking things like, why can I never get up to work out? What is wrong with me? Right? Why can I never be successful? Why do I always look like it's stupid? Why? Those are the questions that are running the show unconsciously behind the curtain. So this is what I call step 1, the dream work. We're going to go through inquire to rewire, the dream work, the daily work, and the deep work. The dream work is where we got to sit down. We got to put pen to paper and we got to uncover the things that are holding us back, the self-limiting beliefs, right? If I were to ask you the magic question, which you've probably heard from me before, If you had all the time and all the money in the world, what would your life look like? What is your answer? What is your answer? And then if I'm to say, okay, great, you would build an orphanage in Africa, you would make $1 million, you would become a professional pickleball player. Why aren't you doing that right now? Well, I don't have the time. I don't have the freedom. I don't have the flexibility. Why don't you have the freedom? Why don't you have the flexibility? We start to uncover the self-limiting beliefs. If I was to ask you in your current business, why aren't you where you want to be, right? If you're a salesperson and say you're selling $50,000 a month and you want to sell 100, why aren't you selling 100? Well, because I don't have the skill set. That's a self-limiting belief, right? I don't have the social media knowledge. That's a self-limiting belief. You're literally identifying yourself as your self-limiting belief. Your brain is filtering for that and holding you back. So we have to put pen to paper to uproot some of these deep unconscious beliefs that we have, right? So for me, for a long time, I thought that my addiction, the fact that I was an alcoholic, was actually to my detriment. I thought, this is a scarlet letter that I wear. This is this part of me that is sick, that tried to kill me pretty much, right? How could that ever be a good thing? Well, at age 36, my friends, I challenged that belief for the first time. And I very quickly saw that that belief of mine, that my alcoholism was the thing that was going to hold me back the rest of my life, was actually my superpower. And I rewrote the story. I rewrote the belief. I rewired the belief to now absolutely believe that it is one of my greatest gifts, that overcoming that gave me the grit, the tenacity, the perseverance, the ability to move forward into my goals, right? The thing that you think is holding you back is often your greatest gift. So that's the dream work. That requires a little bit of time, a little bit of journaling, and a little bit of digging deep, because we gotta look back and uproot what's not working. All right, here's what you've heard a million times from me. The daily work. This is how we rewire on a daily basis. Number one, how am I winning? 5 things, how am I winning? Y'all, okay, I think about when I look out in this big audience of 2,000 people, most of those people that want so desperately to succeed have probably identified maybe 1 or 2 things in the last month that they've won at, right? Like, how often do we actually say, oh, I'm winning because I did this. Oh, I'm winning because this happened. I'm winning because that happened. 1 or 2 in a month is not going to build the belief and the confidence that you need to achieve the next goal. But 5 things a day, 35 things a week, right? 140 things a month. Think about writing out 140 things a month versus 1 or 2. Who's going to build more belief? Who's going to have more confidence? Who's going to have better energy? The person that's writing 5 a day. This is how we shift our entire life. Question number 2, what am I proud of myself for? Just one thing. I'm just looking for one. Again, belief and confidence is everything when it comes to success because it feeds your energy, right? What am I proud of myself for today? You've got to start giving yourself that credit. Question number 3, what am I excited about? This is the energy question because we wake up in the morning and we think, not feeling good. I have allergies. I've got to do this podcast. I have to, record this content. I have to message all these people in my DMs. How about, holy crap, I have all these people in my DMs I get to message back. I get to record the podcast. That was a dream of mine for years. I get to, right? That simple shift in asking yourself, what are you excited about, changes everything. Most importantly, it changes your energy. Question number 4, what are the 3 most important things I need to do today? We've had this conversation 1,000 times. We don't need to be doing 20, 30, 40, 50 things. We need to be doing the 3 important needle movers. I know what mine were today. I did 2 of them before I started recording the podcast, and this is number 3. Check, 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 right? By 1 p.m., I'm done the 3 biggest needle movers. So if I feel like crap the rest of the day, I feel good about what I've done. What are the 3? All right, we're going to dig now into the deep work. Now, this is both shallow and deep. And what I mean by shallow is not shallow as we talk about it when it comes to people's personalities. I'm talking about the deep work starts small and it goes big. It literally goes from one end of the spectrum to the other. And that is the question, how is this a gift? How is this a gift? You are stuck in traffic. You spilled coffee all over your outfit. Whatever that small thing is, you're like, road rage, your anger is frustrated, your energy is frustrated, I should say, you're angry, you're downward spiraling first thing in the morning. How is this a gift? You know what? Maybe I was going to, be in the wrong place at the wrong time and God saving me from a car accident. Maybe that's why I just spilled coffee all over myself and now I got to go change. Maybe I'm being redirected, right? How is this a gift? In those moments of anything slowing me down in the morning, all those little frustrations which undo people, I see the gift. I see the wink from above. I smile, right? I don't know if I shared this story with you, but this is so important when it comes to energy. And I'm going to insert this story really quick and then we'll get to the end of this. But I was going out of town. I was driving up to Charlotte, North Carolina. It's about 3 hours from here. And y'all, I had to record a video before I went. And for some reason, I don't know if it was a Wi-Fi issue or what, but the video would not record, wouldn't save to my phone. I'm like, I have to leave. I got to go out of town. Like people are meeting me on the other end. Like I'm on a timeline, people. It wouldn't work. The more it wouldn't work, the more frustrated I got. Finally, I just had to leave the house. I was like, whatever. Hopefully this magically downloads on the way. Finally, an hour into my trip, it downloads. Then I have to upload it to Facebook and I'm driving. It took another hour just to upload a 5-minute video to Facebook. Y'all, I was in complete and utter bad energy, the epitome of bad energy, right? I went to the gas station. The gas lines were frozen. I'm like, it's 45 degrees. What do you mean they're frozen? So I couldn't get gas. I had to drive to another gas station. This is what happens when we're stuck in bad energy. One thing after the other, after the other, after the other. We attract the wrong things because we are attracting the frequency that we are in. Almost an hour outside of Charlotte, I get on the phone with one of my favorite humans, best friends, and the CEO of the Energy Institute. This man has the best energy of anyone on the planet. Within 60 seconds, I am laughing. My energy is totally shifted. I am high vibing it. We get off the phone. The rest of the ride is like a total high vibe, right? The music's blaring. I'm singing. I'm on top of the world just with one energy shift, a dramatic one at that. When I arrive, miracles happened. Y'all, unbelievable miracles unfolded by the timing of who I walked into and met at the lobby right at the front desk as I was checking in, to the people I met that night, to where I was given a seat for dinner next to one of my literally life idols. The magic just kept unfolding because my energy was in the right place. So energy is everything. When you ask yourselves in those moments of traffic or coffee spilling, what is the gift in this? You got to believe in the bigger picture. Now, I also share this in regards to how is this a gift when it comes to the biggest tragedies in our life? And this was the story I ended the keynote on because it is the story that is one of the most impactful of my entire life. So back in the day, when COVID first hit, we all remember COVID and we kind of roll our eyes at it and just think, how crazy was that? But if you all really go back and you remember the beginning of COVID, the terrifying beginning, where every news station we turned on, thousands of people were dying. People were spilling out of hospitals into makeshift tented hospitals and parking lots in the United States. And going back to what our brain does, because our brain is designed to protect us, how is this not going to happen to me, right? That's what our brain starts asking. How is this not going to happen to me? And what my brain and a lot of people's brains grabbed a hold of is, okay, this is happening to elderly people. And really the only other category of people dying was people that had an underlying health diagnosis. They were sick already, and then they got COVID. And so it's not going to happen to me. It's not going to happen to my family, right? Well, we took my son into a routine doctor's appointment on August 4th. And in the first 5 minutes of a finger prick and a swab, we were told, I remember the doctor looked right at him first and said, "Finn, you have COVID-19." Back then, you have COVID-19 and type 1 diabetes. And then he looked at me and said, "Mom, we have to transport him to intensive care immediately at Children's Hospital." 6 months before this, without the COVID thing happening, one of my best friend's son was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And they didn't bring home a healthy child from their hospital visit. And so thank God we went to the hospital. We were intensive care. It is a very life-threatening situation. But we were able to come home and bring him home and have this thing called type 1 diabetes and a 3-week quarantine of COVID at the time to deal with. And me, who coaches thousands of people through mindset, was not okay. When things affect our children, there is nothing more challenging in life. And I was caught in that downward spiral of all the bad thoughts and all the bad questions. How could this happen to him? How could this happen to us? He's an athlete. He's got these huge dreams and this huge potential. And now he's going to have medical devices attached to his body. He's so skinny. He's so thin. Feeling like, how could you rob him of all these dreams, right? I wasn't asking myself the good questions. And about 3 weeks into that, I got in the shower one morning and I was sick of myself, right? I was sick of the negative thoughts. And I remember thinking to myself, Moira, you are who you are in the world, but you're not being that right now to your family, especially your son. What would you tell yourself? And I asked myself what I consider the magic question with a big, giant eye roll. How the hell is this a gift? And everything changed in an instant. Everything. It wasn't even like there was a chain of thoughts. It was one thought, one vision, one download that I saw it all. I understood in an instant by asking myself that question that because of diabetes, he was going to realize his dreams, not the other way around. That because he has a disease that he has to manage 24/7 as a 12-year-old little boy, he's going to understand how to deal with hard things. He's going to build tenacity. He's going to build grit. He's going to build resiliency. He's going to have a backbone that others don't have. Heck, he's going to have to understand how to fuel and take care of his bodies better than other people, right? All of the gifts, all of the things that are going to come out of this are going to be the reason he succeeds in his dream, not the opposite. And I ran out into the kitchen and I started, just word vomiting all this stuff. He kind of looked at me like I had lost my ever-living mind. But I can tell you today, my belief became his belief. My story about all of this became his story. My perspective became his perspective. And that little skinny, scrawny boy who is super big and muscular and giant today is being recruited to play college baseball. And so what I want you to take away from this is when we want to change the next generation, when we have hopes for them, it starts with us. It starts with us, and we have the ability to change every single story that is holding us back by one question: how is this a gift? And by doing the daily work to wire in a completely new you. A completely new you, one that then all of a sudden responds to adversity with optimism, with hope, right? My automatic, y'all, I got a phone call 18 months ago that my job was taken away overnight and $1 million of income, annual income for my family was gone. And I didn't have a negative feeling go through my body. I just thought, well, that's kind of cool. I wonder what God has in store. I literally didn't miss a beat, not because I'm perfect, not because I'm a mindset master, because I do this work every single day and my brain processes information differently, radically differently, and yours can too. So thanks for listening. If you're still with me all the way to the end, I would love to hear back from you. Nothing fills my soul more than hearing your stories. So DM me, shoot me an email, whichever way you want to get in touch with me. And guys, thanks for listening. And I'll see you next week on the High Vibe Life podcast.